Welcome, everyone, to another episode of Sneaks, Rhymes, and Life. I'm your host, Lionel McDonald. So a special guest for this episode. He's been on before. It was an amazing conversation about his amazing sneaker collection. Laced Heat, otherwise known as Faraz. How you doing, man? What's good?
Good, man. How are you?
Good. Looks like I see a few purchases in the back there. I see a Adidas bag, and you've been getting at some of the sneakers as of late.
I'm in the basement right now just because I have like two monitors so I can kind of look at certain things. But I've been buying a lot of stuff lately. I've noticed this year I've bought a lot of Yeezys.
Okay.
And I had stopped for a while. Like I have like the original ones that came out years ago, and then I kind of stopped because they started releasing so many 350 V2s.
Yeah.
But like I'm not sure if you're aware, like Kanye West like hired Steve Smith, who is he was the designer of the Reebok, like a bunch of Reeboks that came out back in the day. And one of my favorite Reeboks is the Pump Fury. Yeah. He actually designed that shoe, and now he's like the head designer for Yeezy. So those new Yeezys that have been coming out, like the Wave Runner, the 450 that looks like a dumpling.
Yep.
Like that shoe, he designed that. And it's like so crazy and wild. So like, I've been buying like all the new designs because I don't know, I just kind of like shoes that look different than the norm, right? Like we see the same thing every day on everyone's feet.
Yeah, we're at like 50 colors of the 350 V2. So
and they're all the same, like it's like one shade off. Totally. It's like earth, and then like I don't even know,
dirt,
like and cinder, and like all these weird names. And it's like
totally get you. So really glad you were able to join today. This is a special episode because we're going to talk about a shoe near and dear to both of our hearts, and that would be since we just kind of got into October and the beginning of a new basketball season, it's hard to believe, but it's the 25th anniversary of none other than the Reebok Question. So I know for me, Iverson is one of my favorite players of all time. I think he would be in the top three for myself. But, what are your earliest memories of seeing this shoe hit the market? Again, it's unbelievable. It's been 25 years.
I know, like 96, the shoe, I mean, he was drafted in 96 and he wore it that season. So like September, I don't know, when NBA season was like November 96, he started wearing it. And like, at the time my parents couldn't afford that shoe, and because it wasn't even that expensive. It was $100 at the time, and that was, I think, US, so it was about 120, 130 Canadian. But just at the time I was getting like the Sean Kemps, like the Kamikazes, because they were like a little bit cheaper. But yeah, man, I remember, I think I didn't get any questions until actually the answer came out, and the answer won. That shoe in 97 came out, and that shoe was crazy. Like that was, had the DMX air cushioning and stuff. But
yes, sir.
The Question, man, like that's the shoe Allen Iverson crossed Michael Jordan in March of 97, right? Like blue toe questions, rookie season, and he crossed the best player. And that's like one of his favorite players. Like Allen Iverson has always idolized Michael Jordan. And if you actually take a look at the Jordan 11 and then look at the Reebok Question, they're very similar because that shoe was actually designed after the Jordan 11. Like even the lace loops, like if you take a look at the Jordan 11 loops, the Question has the exact same thing. And then the toe cap or whatever, and it goes all the way around.
Yeah. I think I was even, getting ready to talk about this episode, the funny thing is that Iverson wasn't even signed to Reebok as of yet. And, he was wearing obviously a lot of Nikes. I think to me, he made the Concord 11 more iconic because he wore it than actually Jordan did. That's my personal opinion, because he wore it at Georgetown.
Yeah.
So even when he went to sign his sneaker deal, Reebok was so sure that he would sign, and that they already had this shoe in the works. That time they had a couple really good Reebok athletes at the time. They had the Kamikaze, they had Shaq in the fold. They had Dominique Wilkins, Nick Van Exel, but they had the shoe ready and primed for Allen Iverson. So that's my earliest memory. So you think of the iconic silhouette, and yes, it does obviously resemble the Jordan 11. The two colors that came out, there was the white and red, which was probably the harder of the two colors to get, and then there was the white and blue. So I think it's a fun story to kind of share. How did you ever get the white and red one? Because I know it was like a needle in a haystack. I didn't even find it in retail stores here in Canada. I had to buy it from like East Bay. Actually, here's my OG pair here. And it's a little bit different. They actually decided to stitch this one. The blue one came out first, and then I got the red one after. But the red one they quickly changed and stitched it because there were so many issues with the blue. How did you get yours?
I ended up getting mine as a retro. Like they retroed it like later on. I was able to get the original red and then the blue as well. I remember I actually got these from End Clothing. Like this is over 12 years ago. Like I got them and still in pretty good condition. But yeah, there's some slight modifications to the toe cap, like you said, on the retros and then from the OGs, because the OGs actually kind of go up and around. But they stopped doing that. Like even for him afterwards, like after the first 2 years, they stopped doing that rounded toe cap on the questions. But funny story, like when they first dropped, they actually only tested the sneaker in 2 markets. It was actually 3 markets: DC, Philadelphia, and New York. Philly, obviously, because he's from Philly, and the shoes were sold out everywhere. Like nobody can get their hands on them. And then obviously he wore them and he crossed Jordan in them. So it was like people were like camping out. Like this was the earliest camp outs for a sneaker. And this is, pre sneakerheads and all these things, right? So this was like no internet has just started like in 1996. I think Google just started in like 95. Like the internet, everybody was using those AOL discs, like dial-up. So there was no bots, there was nothing like that. There was no blogs. None of those things existed. You just had to go to your local shop, ask the manager, line up, get some information, kind of do your homework yourself to be able to get a shoe. And obviously you had to have friends in certain places who lived in certain cities to be able to get something. Because again, these only dropped in 3 cities. So I had to wait till the retro came out.
I was a part-time working retail at that point, and that's when I got the blue one. And then I end up like I used to subscribe to I signed up for the mailing list, and this is before the internet, so Eastbay. So it showed up in the catalog one day, and it was like I got the catalog, and it was like I called them like literally as soon as I saw it. It's like I'm buying this, I'm buying the suit. Like I bought the jersey, like I bought everything that they had that was Allen Iverson. It was totally obsessed. 25 years later, I'm still crazy for I think from him as an icon, a fashion icon. He was one of these guys that just didn't follow the rules of everybody else. Jordan and Kobe and many others. And we talk about that 96 draft class as being, I won't say it's the best. It's my favorite because that was when I was probably so deep into basketball, but it's definitely one of the 3 draft classes, the best ones of all time when you compare 03 and obviously Jordan's draft class along with this one. So like I think what's unique about the 96 one, it was just so deep. There were so many.
Yeah, like I think the 96 one, in my opinion, I would say that is the best draft class, bar none. Like yes, the one with LeBron was good, LeBron, Melo, but then the Jordan one was good, but there wasn't really, other than Michael Jordan, who's like the greatest of all time, there wasn't too many like superstars that are like in that draft class. But 96, like I just pulled it up because I actually wanted to talk about that. We had Allen Iverson, obviously first pick, Marcus Camby, Stephon Marbury, Ray Allen, and Antoine Walker,
Steve Nash.
Steve Nash, Kobe Bryant, can't miss that one. And he was picked 13th. Peja Stojakovic, Jermaine O'Neal, like Ilgauskas, even like if you want to name some other players that are like lesser known, like Kerry Kittles, Lorenz Wright, like all these players, like this was like a really deep draft class.
Totally. And it's 12 players you just named just now
that are like Hall of Famers. And they're just like, Derek Fisher was in that draft class too. I'm looking here.
So it's like his stamp on basketball is immense in LA, right? So not all Hall of Famers, but definitely impactful players, right? You probably have 5 or 6 Hall of Famers that you've already named. So between Kobe and Iverson and I think ultimately Marbury ends up in the Hall of Fame because of all the stuff he did in China, and then Steve Nash and Ray Allen. So that's 5.
Yeah, exactly. And then we look at Michael Jordan's draft class. We have Akeem Olajuwon, of course. That's a icon right there, one of the best centers. Michael Jordan, Charles Barkley, but Alvin Robertson also.
Drops off from there.
John Stockton was in that draft class as well.
Sorry, I forgot about Stockton. But
outside
after
of that, though, there's no other really superstars. That's it. They just have the 4: Olajuwon, Jordan, Barkley, and Stockton. And then the what you said, the 2003.
Yeah, so you got LeBron, you got Melo, you got Dwayne Wade, and then you got Chris Bosh. There's not much else after that because Darko's the other part of the
That's
top
it.
five, and we
Yeah.
know that actually, I was just reading Carmelo's book, and he was like he was stunned because he had talked to Larry Brown, and Larry Brown says like, "We're picking you," and then the rumor started that they were going to go with this guy Darko that no one had even seen play, and then Melo was like crushed, and then it's
Yeah.
like, oh, he got picked with the next pick, and the rest is history. So
Yeah, but that was a weird pick though. Like what
totally
were they
off left
thinking? Like
field.
picking like, and he's not even in the NBA. Like he just like kind of fizzled. He played like no minutes either, and he was on the
Totally.
Pistons, who were already at the time they were
Yeah.
already stacked, right?
Yeah, because remember they had Tayshaun Prince, they had Chauncey Billups, they had Rip,
Ben
they
Wallace.
had Ben Wallace, and they had Rasheed Wallace. So they
Yep.
were loaded. They should have gone and won another title by picking Melo.
Yep,
But
they could have
it
easily
didn't
won
work
another
out.
title, and Mel would have had a title under his belt for sure. Think
Yeah,
about
in
that.
his
It's
first 3
crazy.
years, but it just didn't work out that way.
It's
So
crazy. Now he's with the Lakers trying to get something before he retires.
exactly in year 19. So pretty wild.
I don't even think that, to be honest, I don't know if it's a hot take or not, but I don't think the Lakers are going to win it this year, man. The way they've started, like, I mean, they're just starting and trying to learn to play together, but they just have way too many people. Like LeBron needs the ball. He does a really good job at, he gives a lot of assists, but Russell Westbrook, he likes to take a lot of shots. Carmelo Anthony takes a lot of shots. So it's like you got a lot of players who need the ball in their hands to make some plays, and it's kind of hard to let everyone have their shine. So some people are going to have to take a step back if they want this team to.
Yeah, I think Melo is kind of filled in, and he's been that person that's come off the bench because he hasn't started, but they've needed his scoring to win probably 3 of the games they've won already this year. Yeah. So it's going to be interesting because I totally agree. It's like LeBron and Russ, they both need the ball. So what is that going to look like? Like, is LeBron going to kind of ease his way through the regular season and then demand the ball in the playoffs? I don't know. Like, I don't know if they can be able to work out a rotation and chemistry on that. That simple fact. So it's going to be a very interesting team. I think there's about 8 teams that could really win if everything kind of fell in their favor, right? So
even Brooklyn without Kyrie still have a pretty good shot.
Really good team. Still a really good team. So, and then don't sleep on the champs because if you're watching, Giannis is making jump shots now, so watch out.
Like I think he's on my fantasy squad. So
I wish I had him because I got Tatum, and it's not going so well right now. Boston's
well, I got LeBron, and this man just got I don't know what happened,
he's out.
But
he's out again for next week. Couple. I think they said 2 weeks since this podcast started. So
I don't know what the hell? What happened? Anyways, he was playing fine. It's like I don't even know what happened. I was just like, he's out for a week. I'm like,
yeah.
So this week I'm definitely going to lose because I already have less games, and the other guy has like 13. I don't know how he has 13 more games than me. So I'm like, how does
you're down the 8 ball already? So it's going to be a tough go.
So I'm like, all right, this is a wrap for this week.
Yeah. So anyways, fantasy basketball is maybe one of the toughest ones to manage. So anyways, let's get back to the Reebok question here for a second. So a lot of other colors, the black gold came out, and that was the transition. You see the jersey that I have hanging up in behind me for those watching on YouTube. Hit that subscribe button and continue to follow the podcast on YouTube, but it's also available on all the major. You got the OG rookie jersey that he crossed Jordan up in. So they came with the black and white, and the white and black, and then the black and gold were the next 2 colors that came out. You got it there. But so that's 4 colors. We got the all-star color, which was one of those funky ones. It was like the yellow with the blue toe. Which is your favorite color?
I actually like the blue toe as like OG wise. I like the blue toe questions the best, just because they're really wearable and stuff. But I mean, I like a lot of the collabs. Like there's a ton of collabs that came out that have since 96 when Reebok started collaborating with like boutiques and stuff and I've got in my collection, I probably have like about 70 pairs of different questions.
Wow.
One of my favorite collabs though that I don't own is the Undefeated collab that came out back in, I don't even remember what year it was, like 2000 and something, like early 2000s.
Yeah.
And they did 2 colorways. They did one that was like all black, had a speckled midsole, and the upper was made of this almost like Kevlar type material, like ripstop nylon type of situation. And then they had this funky like other one that was all different colors, and it was like pink and blue and purple and yellow and orange. And those two shoes, like to find them nowadays, they're easily run you $1,000 if you find a pair that's wearable, right? Because they haven't ever retroed.
Yeah, that's the stamp of undefeated. Once undefeated gets involved in a collab, like the value of that piece goes through the roof. So,
yeah.
So what were your thoughts? And obviously, we're guys that love the question from day one. But what were your thoughts about Iverson as a player?
Iverson was one of my favorite players growing up. Obviously, I was kind of a taller person like in high school, so I was never point guard or anything. We always had like the short guys that were much quicker. But I loved Allen Iverson. He was one of my favorite players growing up to watch, and he was just different from everyone else, right? He wasn't, he didn't follow the rules. He's the reason why the NBA has a dress code, right? Like, literally 2005, they implemented a dress code because they felt he was too thug and street, and he had tattoos and chains. He would come to games in like gold chains, big baggy pants. And they implemented a dress code because of him. So, and it's funny because now you take a look at how the NBA players are dressing. Like before, everyone wore a suit, like Michael Jordan, like Patrick Ewing when they didn't play off court. But Allen Iverson was just different from everyone else, and he was just kind of, you could relate to him more than the typical people who are dressing up or whatever. So he was just kind of a kid from Philly who just made his way into the NBA. And it's crazy because he could have made it into the NFL as a running back too, right?
Yeah, he was an unbelievable, for those that don't know, he was an unbelievable high school football player. Like he was probably going to get drafted. He could have get drafted into the NFL. And I think there was lots of conversations about him getting a full ride scholarship. I think actually a couple of them were offered to him, and he decided to go the basketball route versus football. So it's pretty amazing that for a guy that was only like maybe 6'1" and like 165 pounds, he was like a two sport, like to the greatest extreme phenom, much like you hear about LeBron, that it was weird that he was like a 6'8", 240-pound wide receiver, but like he had like 17 touchdowns as a high school player in one season. So, and I think you really nailed something there. And you talk about Iverson, and he was so relatable. It's like Steph Curry now. Like he looks like someone that you could go to the gym or in your neighborhood court and see a guy that looked just like him. Yeah, and that's why he's so relatable. Except for these two guys had out of this world talent. Yeah, between handles and quickness and being able to get to the basket, and that I think it's so it's a parallel that I draw. Like when I see kids that get so excited about Steph Curry, it's just like that was me when we talked about Allen Iverson, because it's like I could have gone to the Y, and there could have been a guy just like him.
Yeah, I mean, he took Philly to the finals against the Lakers with Shaq and Kobe, like pretty much by himself. Like who did he have? Eric Snow? Yeah, like, he had nobody.
Yeah. And he was before like, Andre Iguodala, so
and he had the step over where he stepped over Tyronn Lue. Like, dude, like he was just so good, scoring like 50 multiple games. He only played 12 seasons, and he's scoring is in like still in the top, I think 25 of all time, and to score that many points in that short span of time is insane. Like he was just insanely talented, and he was like the person every kid wanted to be. Like growing up playing ball, you're like out on the courts, and like you watch the Iverson commercials where they would do the stupid, like you throw the ball this way and you spin the other way and try to get the ball, or you try to throw it behind your back into your legs and like really hard. And I don't know, man, he had all these crazy commercials, and the one with Jadakiss, like
I was just gonna say that one. That's one of my favorite basketball hip hop collaboration commercials. Is Iverson is just going back and forth and crossing over. You can hear him squeaking in this empty gym, and Jadakiss is just spitting, and that was the 90s in a nutshell right there.
Yeah, it was so good, man. I miss that time.
I know, because basketball players wanted to be rappers, and rappers wanted to be basketball players. So,
and like Reebok was big back then too. Like they had a big foothold in the basketball market. They had a lot of players like signed, like like you said before. They had what's his name, Shaq, Kemp, Allen Iverson, Dominique Wilkins, like a bunch of players.
And Axel.
But they just ran, I guess, since Adidas bought them, in 2006, like, and the Reebok actually had the contract for the NBA jerseys too. They had a 10-year
I
contract
know.
that they signed. I think it was in 2005. So all the jerseys in the NBA and I think also the NFL were made by Reebok at the time.
Yeah.
And once Adidas bought them, they just kind of transitioned that contract to themselves, and they removed Reebok from the basketball market, something that they were doing so well in. And as you saw, like as time went on, they just focused on CrossFit and UFC. So it's like, how do you take a company who's known for all these iconic, like they had the whole Blacktop series. Remember they had ball shoes.
That was unbelievable. Like, so like for those listeners that, you know, you didn't grow up in the 90s, like Nike and Reebok were like toe to toe when it came to sneakers. There actually more people gravitated to Reebok in those times than they did to Nike. And now to see, you know, you go to a retail store and it's just because of availability and how the brand has evolved. Like you can hardly find any Reebok shoes on a wall, period.
There's like 4 pairs of shoes, a Question,
and Club like C, classic leather, and classic leather, and you might find one other. You might find an Answer or something like that. But
like if anybody's watched those iconic movies like Above the Rim or Blue Chips with Shaq,
they're all wearing Reeboks.
They're all wearing Reeboks. All the black tops are all wearing Reeboks. Like they're just, I don't know, man. Like I don't know what happened, but it's just a little bit disappointing. But that's why, like I you know, gravitate towards all the older stuff. I don't really buy too many new Reeboks anymore. But whenever they retro a Question or a Pump Fury, I'm always, you know, down to buy it.
Yeah, and I think, you know, you mentioned Pump Fury. Fury is one of the most iconic shoes, period. And you talk about how important, like, you know, some of these Nike silhouettes or, you know, New Balance with 574s, like Pump Fury is in that conversation. It's an unbelievable shoe.
And it's crazy. It released in 94 and it was just so ahead of its time. It just looks futuristic now in 2021.
Totally.
So yeah, and the same guy who designed the Pump Fury designs for Kanye West for the Yeezy line. So all the new Yeezys, Wave Runners, the 450s, all those are designed by Steven Smith. So who designed the Fury and like a bunch of other Reeboks. He actually also designed the New Balance 1500, the 997. So this guy's like the tinker of sneakers, but he's literally worked with every brand. Like Tinker's known for Jordan Brand and Nike. This guy's worked with New Balance, Adidas, Reebok, like a bunch of different brands. He's actually worked for Nike as well and designed a few silhouettes for them too. But it's just crazy how, you know, and that's why I kind of gravitate. Like I have been buying a lot of Yeezys recently, the newer silhouettes, just because I like, you know, different things that you don't see often. And I think it's just because Steven Smith, his designs are kind of out of this world. So
something different. He's like, call it, he's ahead of the curve in terms of building stuff that doesn't exist in the current marketplace right now, and giving us something different, right? So
some good stuff. I had purchased what new purchases I have. I did buy these. This is my last Reebok purchase. They did a collab with Bape, and I'm trying to remember. I don't even remember where I had them, but it was a Pump Fury, and it's literally got Bape camo, both shoes.
That's what makes it, is the Bape camo for those that are watching on YouTube. So,
and it's literally every color, and it's like a ripstop material too on the upper.
Yeah, I can see that. That's amazing. All right. So again, as we wrap up, really appreciate your time, Faraz, and always love talking Reebok with you. I know that the shoe is something special. You know, again, it was built for like the Concorde and the Jordan 11 overall. You know, built for speed and performance. And Iverson like just took over the world when he got it in. It's funny that, you know, he got a contract. It was like a 10-year contract for 60 mil, and then
60 mil.
And then at one point, then he went totally broken, and Reebok kind of bailed him out. Is giving him, like, they have this
lifetime contract.
Lifetime contract. He's getting $800,000 a year, and then he's got a trust fund. Waiting for him. I don't know what, he has to be 60 or 65 when he gets this trust fund.
But it's like 50 million or something that's just sitting there waiting for him. And it's crazy because Reebok signed him, and they missed out on signing Jordan. Like, or not Reebok, that was Adidas who missed out. Sorry, but Reebok knew that Nike had Jordan, and that was like their main focus. And Allen Iverson going to Nike he was never going to be like the player like the signature player at Nike, because nobody's going to top Jordan. So Reebok paid him like the biggest amount like any other sneaker companies paid at the time, and he accepted it, and you know, the rest is history. So that was probably one of the best moves that Reebok did make. Is signing Allen Iverson, because it really helped solidify their, because that shoe, the Reebok Question, is honestly, when you think of all the basketball shoes that have come out all time, Reebok Question is always in the top 5. Like obviously Jordans are in their own kind of category. They have, because they're Jordans, right? Like you can't like the Jordan 1, Jordan 3, I would say is probably one of my favorite Jordans.
It's a lot of people's favorite.
But the Reebok Question is, I mean, at least for someone who's grew up in the 90s and 2000s, like you would definitely see that. Like, I mean, maybe not nowadays. These kids will probably say, you know, KDs, or because the KD4 was a dope shoe. Like that was probably the first KD that really took off the rest of the line. Steph Curry's, I don't know. I'm not a fan of Under Armour. His
so funny. I had that conversation today. Like Steph Curry 2, it was bananas trying to buy it. Like people were buying like the 8th color and it was selling out. But then the KD or the Curry 3 wasn't as good shoe performance wise and how it looked, and it kind of sunk the whole line. People never went back to it.
Had like that dad shoe. It almost looked like they had the commercial. People were just making fun of it. It's all white.
I think we got to like 8, that was like Curry 6 or 7 and never recovered from there. But I think when you start talking, and it's not even, you know, the Iverson or the Reebok Question in particular is the, you know, one of the best basketball shoes that is not a Nike shoe. It's one of the best basketball shoes of all time when we talk about an iconic, period. And I think, you look at any of these lists and you look at shoes like, Jordan 3 is probably in the list. Maybe you got a Penny, but then the Question is in the conversation, and sometimes it supersedes it. Like for me, 100% it's in the top 3 of maybe my favorite shoes, period.
The Question's in there. You know, think about other brands, Grant Hills, like we're just talking about basketball. We're not talking about like the brand itself, but when we talk about a signature sneaker, back in the 90s, the Grant Hills were huge. In the 80s, they had the Converse Weapon. That was like literally every school had a colorway. And then they had, what was it? Larry Bird and Magic Johnson. They had their colorways, and they had the Lakers and Celtics colorway. So that was a huge shoe. The foam posits, like you mentioned, has to be on that list. Just trying to think. D Brown's pumps.
That's one of my favorites too. Because again, when you wore that in high school, that's why it was it still resonates with me to this day, right? So
and then the Shaq Gnosis, remember that shoe? Will Smith wore it in Men in Black. Dude, that shoe is just eye catching, right? Like you see that on court and it's just crazy. Reebok did a really good job with Shaq's signature line before he left and then started, you know, making his own shoes. And then he went to Payless with his Shaq brand and kind of devalued it there. But you know, Shaq's a businessman. He's making millions right now. He's got so many investments. So he knows what he's doing. But his Reebok line was definitely like iconic as well. The Shaq Attacks, and then they had the Insta Pump attachment that you can attach onto the shoe. Crazy.
When you talk about Shaq, like Shaq is even gone to the point now when people call it a percentage of his likeness, or you know, what that's worth. Like he went out and turned the money that he got, he went and bought like the likeness of like Marilyn Monroe and Elvis Presley. So like he made a quote the other day, and it's like so when my kids talk about that they're rich, it's like I quickly correct them. It's just like, you're not rich, I'm rich.
That's right.
And you live in my house, or you're family members of mine. I'm the one that's rich. So he's a funny dude. So anyways, really appreciate you being on. Love talking Reebok with you. Hopefully we can do this again when there's a 25th anniversary or some new anniversary. We're going to have to find out when the next big chat about a Reebok shoe. It's the Pump Fury, or you know, even, you know, we talk about shoes, and you know, Reebok even went to, you know, had the ES22, which was Emmitt Smith shoe, and that was a dope shoe. I absolutely love that shoe.
That kind of looked like the Question a little bit too.
Yes, it did. And I think that's why I liked it. So anyways, the next time there's another big Reebok shoe, we'll have to definitely get you on and talk some more.
I'll pull some out, and we can definitely chat it up a bit again. It's just weird. Like this year's 25th anniversary, Reebok didn't do that much for the Question. So I think surprised.
I think you were saying earlier, it's the transition now them of having a new owner. I think they just missed the ball in really celebrating some of these things. So,
yeah. Well, it is what it is.
Yeah. So, hey, again, I think, maybe that they're going to do something. Hopefully they have something planned in December when they eventually start talking about the crossover and on Jordan and some of these other things that happened. I think it's March 12th, 97 is when it happens. So hopefully there's another release or another conversation about the question, because it's hard to talk about a shoe that's now 25 years old and how important it is to the sneaker culture. It needs to be celebrated in the right way.
Yeah. You see how Jordan brand celebrates like every anniversary of a Jordan.
Oh, they don't miss anything. Every 5 years, it's coming back out again.
Yep.
So,
and then you see like Reebok kind of missed the ball on this one. And it's funny because like when they were talking about buyers, I heard Shaq was actually interested in investing in Reebok when they were talking about selling it. He was thinking about buying it as well, depending on how much it was. But that would have been cool to see. But I'm interested to see where the brand goes with the new owners. Yeah. And they got a new creative director as well for the classics line. Pierre Moss, Pyrmoss. So he's got some crazy designs. So that'll be interesting to see what he comes out with next year.
Yeah. So fingers crossed for the brand. But anyways, thank you for your time. Really appreciate you being on. And we'll definitely have to catch up on the next go round. So
awesome, man.
Thank you, listeners. Really appreciate it. Another awesome episode. Salute to the Reebok Question. 25 years since people were driving like 3 hours to go buy this shoe. Pretty awesome. But on that note, that's the end of the pod. Peace.